Testing, testing. Hello, all. If you guys out there can tell me if I'm getting any audio into YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it. Because I believe I have audio in the Discord, but not audio on YouTube. It's not giving me no. Hello, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Yeah, if anyone in the Discord or the chat can tell me if I'm getting any audio, I will probably have to. There is audio in the YouTube. Thank you very much. I know. I'm not seeing anything move up and down on my end. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. What a terrible way to start a show, right? Okay. This week we are talking about dragons, and I was having a little bit of a private discussion with some of the great and powerful members who are over in the Discord, um, helping me out, and making me look brilliant. Although I did them, I did them a disservice with this. So this channel is called RPG with DBJ. The reason is because, well, I'm your host. Now, each week we take a subject. This week we're doing dragons, and we kind of deep dive down that path of yeah, the dragons sure as hell are messing with me. So, well, what are we doing today? Well, today is Thursday, and Thursday is like it's my baby. It is the third pillar Thursday, and third pillar Thursday represents the pillar of exploration, with combat and social interaction being the first and second pillar of tabletop RPGs. So the third pillar, exploration, to me means something rather specific, kind of nichey a little bit. And not only is it exploration of exploring the landscape and environment, or dungeons, or some places unknown, or exploring a major metropolis or something, but is also using the environment to add to the drama and difficulties, and just changing things up in what can sometimes feel like a bland and flat encounter at any particular moment. Well, the reason why I was distracted is because I have fond yet uh, kind of filtering away and disrupted memories of a series of adventure modules. Now, what does that have to do with dragons and the environment? Well, I will tell you. Yesterday, on World Building Wednesday, I made a point of talking a lot about using dragon regional effects and dragon layers, and because dragons are so elemental and powerful, and basically reskinning and reshaping them to become part of the environment. And when building a world, I was imagining a world that was possibly devastated by, or in a strange way, terraformed by the vast power of the dragons, either purposefully, meaning a big red dragon breathing fire and just like blasting the landscape, or passively, by the dragon's mere presence, shaping and twisting the environment to the point that there are very few safe places to live that are not within the protectorate of one or more of these clutch or clans of dragons, and that's where the people live and possibly serve, for better or worse, these various types of dragons. Now, of course, seemingly that seems like, well, that should have been in Third Pillar Thursday, which I agree with you. We'll get there, but I wanted to bring up something else that can be problematic when inserted. But I will tell you that this is the kind of thing not reserved for dragons that you can use to really ramp up the environment, and that is turning a very massive, large creature and turning it into an environmental effect. Turning a dragon not making it an adversary, specific adversary. And I listen, I hear you. You're like, this is going to be a problem there, DBJ. There's no way you can do this. But to follow me on this, okay? We've seen plenty of action media, and I bring up this. You know me, I bring up television and movies all the time, books and graphic novels as well. And the reason I do is because I personally am a very visual person, and I have just as great a love for movies and television and the making of those things as I do role playing games. And one of the things we often see is the person on the ground. Okay, during some of our favorite post, I mean, during some of our favorite apocalyptic events, meaning like buildings falling, the ground shaking, places burning, debris falling. We love to have that image and of the person on the ground. A director or a writer will show you the one individual who's running on the ground. And I'm going to bring up for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to bring this up anyway. You guys know of a well filmed and designed scene in Game of Thrones in the very last season where we get to see Arya Stark run through the streets. She's the young one with the sword called Needle or whatever, the ninja face, the face changer, whatever the case might be. She's running along the streets, and you get to see the dragon just destroy. Sorry, spoiler alerts. Get destroy the city and stuff, and it is seen from the person on the ground. The individuals running on the ground, they're not necessarily specifically being targeted, but there is chaos around them. Now, you could, of course, stretch this into, say, a battlefield, or a battlefield works in this regard. The innocent people running around when Godzilla is fighting a great monster. When the latest, when Superman fought Zod and the people from his realm that escaped the Phantom Zone and were destroying Metropolis, and the people running around. Again, it's the person on the street, right? Well, how do we mix that into our gaming world? And I contend that a dragon's mere existence, especially if you want to make a world in which dragons are Tesla's like kneel before Zodzilla. Yeah. For if you really want to make your dragons in this world that you've shaped around dragons, maybe there are dragons that are so massive and so powerful they are godlike. Like their mere presence flying overhead blots out the sun, lowers the temperature. It, causes hurricane winds simply by the flapping of their wings. These are creatures that basically should not be fought. They're statless, right? It's the monkey theorem. If you stat it, they will kill it. These would be creatures that are unstatable. Now, I bring this up, and I had a little bit of a conundrum when I started to stream because there is an adventure module, the first of which began in 1983, known as the Desert of Desolation series, and it's highly rated, highly rated. And the Desert of Desolation series involved. This is from, they call it first edition AD&D, but I suppose technically it's second edition, although it is the first edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, the Desert of Desolation series it's very Egyptian themed, and in this Egyptian themed adventure, the PCs go into a desert place somewhere in your world, and they have to free a spirit pharaoh and collect these gems and a rod and that kind of thing. Now, there's something that happens in the adventure that is either blamed on the PCs or blamed on other adventurers that were essentially grave robbers. And that is the release of an Efreet that was trapped. The classic, it is a play on the classic releasing the genie from the bottle. And the Efreet is freed and decides to wreak havoc throughout the desert. And a Jinn comes down to confront the Efreet because the Efreet, of course, is evil, the Jinn is good, and they do battle. And in the adventure, they really don't stat out the Efreet and the Jinn. You're not supposed to be able to fight them. What happens is the PCs are able to look up in the sky, and in and around the clouds, they can see the Efreet and the Jinn battling each other. And their battles have stretched so long and far that they literally have turned portions of the desert into a sea of glass. And that's where the idea of traveling on these skate ships came from. This has to do with the Desert of Desolation series. And I was looking it up because I'm sure I'm remembering portions of it incorrectly. And mind you, the Sea of Glass and the battling Ifrit and the Jinn and things like that don't specifically have to do with the adventure, although if I'm not mistaken, I believe the spirit of a pharaoh that needs to be freed has the power to once again imprison the Ifrit, I believe, has to do with one of the things. Anyway, a long story short, the Jinn and Ifrit are not static creatures. They are environmental effects that have transformed this desert into a sea of glass to the point where there are people who are traveling around on skate ships, literally wide-bodied sailing craft that have ice skate-like blades on the bottom that are able to skate across these plains of glass. And the reason why I say that is because when it comes to using, maybe you want to introduce Titan-like giants where their chests rise above the clouds, or you want to introduce the gods and maybe the gods are battling, or Cthulhu has risen from the sea or come from the outer worlds and is stalking upon the earth, or you want to make some form of creature that is, Godzilla kind of fits into that realm as well, where some kind of kaiju is devastating the landscape. And I understand we do have the Tarask that kind of fills the kaiju statability and whatnot, but maybe in your world, in the session 0, you've explained your PCs like, listen, there are things out there. Yes, they're alive, they're huge, and you're going to want to fight them, but you can't. They're just that massive. We're ants compared to whatever is out there. Like I said, this can be problematic, but it can also be, yeah, you better watch your step. Yeah, hell yeah. As a matter of fact, there was an adventure. I'm sure Deadman would probably know that. Pop this in there, or Tesla in the Discord. There was also an adventure in which the player characters, this is a high level adventure where the player characters have to stop a rampaging robot. And the adventure takes place with the PCs entering the robot's ankle and adventuring up into the robot's head to stop it from devastating the landscape. I know it is out there. Colossus something is in the name, or Colossal is in the name. Anyway, the idea is that it is this can be done two different ways. Okay, one way is that the environmental effects of these dragons, one or more of these dragons blasting the landscapes, having these battles and destroying everything around them, is something that it just can't be stopped, right? It's just a part of the environment and is a reason why almost like a post-apocalyptic setting, it's not a matter of the PC solving the problem. It's more or less the PC surviving to adventure yet another day. And this, if there's a way for them to solve it, it's way in the distance, okay? Much like a zombie apocalypse or a World War III post-nuclear, or whatever the case may be. It's not a matter of the PC stopping a zombie incursion. It's more or less the PC's just surviving another day, right? Not curing the actual afflictions and whatnot. And the same thing would go here. The other way of using it is that the purpose of the adventure is for the PCs to stop the one or more multiple dragons devastating the environment, but they understand, and most of the population understands, there really is no way for them to stop it. Whether it's an alien ships floating over the surface of the world, and there's no way for any one PC to make them go away. It may be that there is a key, there is a clue, there is a way of removing these dangers, but everyone understands that, to remove these dangers is to go on a quest that will take, weeks, months, years, tens of years, multiple generations, that kind of thing. So let's get into some mechanical effects, okay? Now I posted in our Critical Hit Publishing Facebook group, and also in the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, exploring the environment, exploration pillar. And one of the things I put down is we understand what combat and social interactions are, right? We know what types of different combat there is. There's combat for, there's, hand-to-hand combat, melee, there's grappling, there's, using long reach weapons, there's ranged combat. Okay, we know about that. And then we know about social interactions. We have threats and bribery and diplomacy and carousing and persuasion and entertainment and performance. We understand different types of social interactions, but we really don't have classifications for exploration. And so for me, a lot of the classifications I use for exploration, and I'm getting to the point, this has to deal with dragons. Follow me on this. The different kinds of classifications for exploration include, the big one is knowledge. Exploring an environment to gain knowledge, gaining the proverbial MacGuffin to solve the problem, exploring a tomb, exploring the countryside, and coming in contact with other people and having the other pillars come about due to exploring the realms itself. Maybe exploration brings about knowledge of history, or the exploration brings about finding a hidden enclave of individuals you would have. Yes, Dead Man brings a perfect exploring the library, right? If you don't explore the library to find the book that gives you the clue or the needed information you need to solve the problem, you're not going to have it. Exploring a city, going into a city and finding out the passageways, whether they're deep into the sewers or the upper reaches of exploring the realms of where the nobles and the rich people live. And that could include, going to parties, social encounters, or going into stumbling into the criminal red light district of the city, having some combat encounters there. And then understanding these things about the city, you have more information, you're exploring. That's one type of exploration. But for me, there's when using the environment, there's static environments, there's random environments, there are if-then environments, if/then environments, there are escalation environments, and there's also situational environments, kind of a catch-all. Okay, so static environments are when you're in this environment, this thing happens. And a perfect example of that is you are on a high cliff. The static environment is you are at a tall height. You're fog, being underwater. Those are static environments. Being in darkness is a static environment. If you're in darkness, it's dark. If you don't have dark vision, you're blinded. If you have dark vision, your vision extends to like 60 feet on average. That's it. It's static. Being underwater is a static environment. You are underwater, and there are rules and restrictions for being underwater. And there are plenty of other static environments as well. Whether enemies are above you, you are in a cold region or very hot region or very humid region or something of that nature. Maybe there's a steady wind blowing, and that's a static environment. There are also escalating environments. Escalating environments are things are just getting worse. The longer you stay here, the worse it's going to get. Whether you're in the path of a hurricane or tornado or sandstorm is an escalating environment. Our heroes from Lord of the Rings running down the crumbling steps when trying to escape the caves of Mordor is an escalating environment. Oh, there's a little short break in the steps we have to jump across. Oh, there's a larger break in the steps. Oh no, the pillar holding the steps up is starting to sway and move. Oh, there are enemies on the side. It's escalating. A flooding chamber is an escalating environment. So being in water might be static, but being in the dark sewers or being in a cave that's beginning to flood is an escalating environment. There's also if-then environments. If the PCs do something or NPCs do something, then this other thing happens. So if you are in the Arctic cold and if you create a large sound or use a thunder wave spell, or let out a very loud yodel or something, then if you make a lot of sound, then you'll be covered in avalanche. If you go across the rope bridge, then there's a chance that the boards will break. If you attempt to ascend the cliffside, then there's a chance of you falling. It's if you do something, then something else will happen. Maybe you're in a swamp or you're in caves and you smell chemicals or gases or something. If you light a fire, then you might ignite those flammable liquids and things. Then there's random, and I'm getting to the random part. And this is why I snaked around it and looped around, and I'm coming back to it. Yep. Scott Poe says, if anyone mines the little gems out of the wall, then they attract locals or tremor sense predators. Yes, absolutely. Right. Dune. Right. If you walk on the sands, then you may attract the giant sandworms with the spice blow coming out of their blowholes or something, right? If you're bleeding, then you're going to attract sharks in the deep ocean, right? So there are situations. I love if-then situations because it puts the onus on the players, right? Okay, you could do something safer, but it might take you longer. It might be harder to do it. Or you can do something far more dangerous, but it might get you to your success, your win state faster. So I love those things. Graboids from Tremors. Really, Dead Man? Really? You went to Tremors. They're ridiculous, but I love the Tremors movies too, although in my head they're all blended together, kind of. I think there was like 4 of them? I don't remember. Anyway, so random events are things like volcanoes spewing forth something. 5 Tremors movies. Yeah. And there's fans of them. I don't know if I'd watch them again, but see, now you're going to make me do it. You're going to make me. So a volcano spewing forth hot lava and rocks or something is a possible random event. PCs running through a battlefield, a major battle with arrows and catapults or even bullets and explosions and mines, and imagine those big fantasy battles with like giant creatures and spells being flung would be a randomized environment where no one is specifically targeting the PCs, but there's a chance that something will happen to them. Maybe going to a plane of chaos is a random environmental effect. I suppose you can include some weather events like hurricanes and tornadoes, flinging things around randomly. A mob of individuals, like a riot or something, going crazy, that would count as something random. So in randomized situations, you could use a die roll, maybe percentile roll, or some other event to randomly pick and choose PCs and or NPCs as well, especially if the NPCs are not adapted to the region. For example, there may be, heat-based creatures that have come out of a volcano and they could care less about the volcanic spew, but maybe if the PCs are tracking like orc raiders that are not adapted to a place where there's a ridge of volcanoes going off, they could be attacked just as easily as the PCs. Dead man's like, there's actually six with a seventh in the planning stage. The Tremors movies, really? Man, somebody should pay me to come up with some of these things. So anyway, oh man. So the another thing about randomized events is that a randomized event is a great way. And Tesla's like, don't forget the TV series. And for those who are like desperate to find out about the Tremors series because it is really, really you know, sitting in the back of their head, like they just can't get sleep. It's turning your stomach that you're like, I've got to watch all the Tremors. Please go to the Fantasy Grounds Discord channel. Those of us that are the cool kids are hanging down in the boiler room as you slide past all the other classrooms and people hanging out. We're down there in the DBJ voice channel, and there is a link to the Tremors franchise. Thank you, Dead Man. Thank you. You guys are crazy. So the randomized events are, for me, are a great way to place an environmental hazard in, especially in a combat situation, because it may force the PCs to change their actions and reactions and really throw in a monkey wrench. So, for example, using the volcano again, volcano's exploding, it's spewing out hot lava and rocks and things coming down randomly around where the PCs are maybe having a conflict with some NPCs or monsters or something. So you could do like everyone rolls a die 6 or a die 4. If it's rare, depending on how close they are, maybe a die 8. And if they roll a 1, or maybe if they roll a 1 or a 2, they will become a target of this flaming debris, right? So maybe you can establish something where they have to roll a saving throw to dodge out the way. Maybe they have to spend an action to keep their eye on the debris falling down above their heads. And if they keep an action open, they can automatically move out the way of the flaming debris. And if they don't, they might be targeted as well and make a save for like half damage. And by incorporating that, maybe on initiative 20, although with the cinematic environments, I use initiative 10 as a baseline, separating Lairs and our cinematic environments from I'm about to sneeze, guys, so I apologize. Sorry, you can tell in my voice that I've got something, so I apologize again. Boy, I wish I should have muted myself out. Whatever. So the other idea is that maybe something happens on a particular initiative rating, and if you take actions to take cover from something randomized, maybe I have no idea what the hell that means there. Fanat Shafi. Fanat Shafi. Maybe if the PCs are able to take actions before, say, a particular initiative number, like for me, for cinematic environments, it's initiative 10, then they can avoid harm or something. And so by having this randomized thing for the next initiative, you go, okay, everybody grab a die, and you sit there and you roll and you see what happens. What harm may befall some or all of the individuals in the encounter. It's a great way to ramp up the danger, and also again throw in that monkey wrench, whereas the big barbarian that's always dishing out damage might have to be like, you know what, I'm withdrawing because I don't want to get hit by flaming spheres of lava or whatever the randomized effect is. Now the randomized effects could be like, say, on a battlefield. Maybe you not only is it a random chance of you getting targeted, but it could be a random chance of what it is that targets you. So it could be an errant javelin or a ballista bolt or a hail of arrows or a wild horse that's lost its rider or a burning wagon that's rolling downhill or a mob of warriors and fighters all battling each other, walking over top of the PC, stumbling into you, or the charge of a cavalry, or any number of things. Maybe a wheel gets dislodged from a siege engine, and it starts rolling. It may roll across one of the PCs or an NPC. It could be an errant spell cast from a castle wall when the PCs are trying to siege the wall, and a bolt of cold or lightning or fire comes striking down at them, or a chunk of debris is launched from a catapult and may crush them or something. I say these things because, don't tell anybody, but I'm also writing a cinematic environment books called Battlefields, and it might have something like this in here. Anyway, but let's come back to dragons. I went around the corner. Let's come back to dragons. What does that have to do with the environment? Well, we could establish various locations in our world or circumstances that lead to something where the dragons themselves are literally randomized, escalating events that can take place depending on where the PCs are, especially if the PCs are rebel factions or usurping some kind of rulership, and the dragons are punishing the people or the countryside or the city. And so you could not only have a random chance that one or more of the PCs or the group of PCs will be targeted, but what that target is it, has the dragon, did the dragon tail lash a tower, and that tower or wall is crumbling down on the PCs? Or is the tower in the path of the flaming breath or poison gas or acid being spewed by the dragon, or bolt of lightning? I like blue dragons, but a bolt of lightning or something. Has the dragon, I don't know, knocked down a catwalk or a bridge that the PCs are going under, or broken a pillar that's holding up a bridge that the PCs are traveling over top of? Or maybe the PCs round a corner and there's a mob of people running from a wave of flame coming down the street or the alleyways, and the PCs have to dodge away from literally the mobs of people before getting crushed or knocked down or getting stomped on. Which you guys know that when we did our week of talking about humans and humanity and humanoids, and there's people themselves can be a hazard unto themselves, both badly, meaning attacking you, crushing you, grappling you, stepping on you, as well as being cover, standing in, that can become meat shields if you hide in a crowd of people as well. So that might be a hazard with dragons. There may also be, maybe the dragon wings themselves create such high winds that they're like huge gusts of winds or tornado winds that sweep down streets. There might be literally, the dragon might literally be creating wind tunnels in and around a city that the PCs are trying to navigate around. A random effect might be getting lost in a city. PCs are running for cover, are panicked and running for cover so much that they go down these various alleyways and running up steps and going across bridges and things like that, to the point where it gets to the point where they get lost and navigating themselves. Maybe a hazard is the PCs getting separated in a crowd of individuals and not being able to find out where their allies are located after the crowd rushes past and splits everybody up through force or pressure. There may be things that are dangerous that the dragon's passage might cause harm to, such as barrels of acids and oils being ignited, or a construction site there where they're trying to reconstruct after the last time the dragon came by, and the dragon now is destroying. Maybe the city is erecting an image to a great gold dragon or something, and they have barely finished, and the great blue is flying by and attempting to destroy all the great works that the people have to honor the great gold dragon that helped protect them until the gold dragon was exiled or killed or whatnot. Or maybe they found out that the gold dragon has been dead all along, and the blue is taking over and firing lightning bolts into scaffolding and cranes that are carrying large stone pallets and things, and maybe they can tumble down and tumble over in and around where the PCs are located. And so you could come up with a randomized table and then randomized attacking your PCs. Now, for us and at Critical Hit and using the cinematic environments, we use something called even the odds. And even the odds is sounds like what it sounds like. So when evening the odds, everyone just picks up a random die. And what you want to do is you want to even the odds. So you pick up any die, you roll it, and what you want, this doesn't have any numbers on it, but you want to grab a die and you want to get an even result because you want to even the odds. If you get an even result, great, you're not going to be a target. If you get an odd result, too bad, you might be targeted by falling debris, a rock slide, a cow being thrown through the air because of a hurricane or a tornado, rooftop shingles being ripped, a roof being ripped off, and you being slammed into by the debris or something. An errant geyser of flame shoots up from the ground, or the ground cracks open because of a vast earthquake, and you may fall through a crevice and get trapped inside the crevice. So that's what we use for cinematic environments, even the odds. And at the beginning of every round, everyone, and maybe the thing is that depending on the encounter, you as the DM or the GM can establish whether the NPCs or monsters are adapted to the situation or they are part and parcel of the situation. So, for example, in say a sandstorm or a tornado or hurricane, a cloud giant on their feet is not going to be affected by any of that stuff, which makes them even more powerful. Whereas, hey, Boff, what's going on? Thank you for joining. Whereas PCs, again, fighting some other kind of creature that's in this wild, strange environment might absolutely be affected by it, so you would roll for them as well. And does that mean some of your NPCs or creatures might get taken out by the environment just for being there? The answer is yes. And you may even have your PCs PCs using and abusing the environment by setting up a situation in which the PCs make it so that their enemies are in the path of one or more of these hazards as well. Scott says some sort of weird locust-like swarms envelop the PCs as they travel through the wilderness and obscure sight. Absolutely. And again, let's do that, right? PCs, because I'm going to keep this dragon theme, but I'm going to follow you on this with Scott. So PCs want to go after a black dragon in a deep swamp. Okay. And I mentioned before, like dragons have lairs. You could reskin the lair of one or all of the dragons so that the lair and regional effects are the environment, meaning like Denman says micro dragons, dragonflies. So there is a possibility of, say, PCs are traveling through the swamp to go after the black dragon. Okay, so maybe there's a randomized effect of being, like you said, being covered by locusts or coming upon, insects themselves are brutal in swamps, whether they're being attacked by like mosquitoes, locusts, swarms of spiders, ants, so many different things. And all of them could have a different effect. If they're flying, they could blind you, or not just blind you, but obscure sight so that, again, using 5th edition, you have disadvantage or a bane or a boon on whatever you're attempting to do. Maybe that might cause physical harm, causing like hit point damage. Maybe it is a distraction. So if you're caught in the cloud, it removes an action because you are so distracted by what's going on, or causes a concentration check for the wizard, or maybe it causes a concentration check to perform any particular activity, or maybe it causes a temporary loss of strength or dex or something from massive insect bites, or causing some poison damage or something. And that's just a minor thing as well. Whereas if you're going through a swamp, you can come across, what are some random things you come across? There are maybe there's a random creatures or encounters with creatures like decomposing animals, and there's a bunch of maggots inside, or circling vultures or ravens overhead, or something of that nature. Long before the black dragon awakens. And Scott says leeches, giant, regular or giant. Absolutely. I think in D&D, a lot of just like rot grubs and whatnot. Maybe you have pockets of pockets of oozes and fluids, either sentient or not. So maybe the PCs come across things like sinkholes, tar pits, um, quicksand, flotillas and oozes. Maybe black puddings, gray oozes, green slimes, gelatinous. They don't have to be cubes. Gelatinous pools may exist in this swamp, just having to happen to be there, where if you step in them or get pushed into them, or push an enemy into them, that it has the effect of that ooze, but it's not reaching out towards you. Or they might be alive. It might literally be something that's flowing in and around the area. Maybe you're I love bringing up the idea of the frozen lake, where randomly pieces of the ice might break beneath your feet or start to shatter or break beneath your feet. Or you could foreshadow the idea that the ice might break by having one or a PC step on the ice and having a crack just explode across the ice without them falling through it. And then now you foreshadowed the act that the PCs may fall into this frozen lake, and this thing might happen to them. Dead Man says Draco leeches. Draco leeches. Yeah, Draco leeches might be pretty nasty. Gives new meaning to that burning sensation, especially if they swim into and around your nether regions inside of that armor. So yeah, I mean, so you guys understand what I'm saying about like randomize and making dragons themselves become the adversary and change the environment. Now, going back to dragon layers and dragon regional effects, of course, I think a world of dragons would have those regional effects, and you may even have the environment shift and change, almost terraforming based on the growth and diminishing of a dragon's protectorate, so that as a dragon loses its power or gets older or is young or some other kind of effect, whether it's arcane power that's being drawn to them or what have you, that maybe the landscape itself, you can literally see the landscape shifting. So maybe the great black dragon and its black dragon clan is filled with rivers, stagnant rivers of like acid and oozes and things. And maybe over time, as the other black dragons or black dragon-like creatures maybe under its control, maybe there are chromatic and metallic versions of wyverns and drakes and pseudo dragons and serpents and other winged beasts. So there might be red dragon wyverns versus like green dragon wyverns versus silver dragon serpents and drakes and things, which I think would be kind of cool and a great way to reskin a ton of creatures. Maybe even having like, hell, I'd go and reskin like sphinxes and manticores and harpies and things, and reskin them as draconic creatures. Even reskinning lizard folk, dragonborn, Yanti or Yuan-Ti, and kobolds as being descended from dragons or enhanced by dragons or whatever the case might be. I would even do that. Just reskin their backgrounds and you're done. And maybe there's Yuan-Ti changing their names maybe, or keeping their names and making them dragon breed associated. Maybe the same thing with the Suhagan and troglodytes as well. So, like, instead of troglodytes smelling nasty, maybe they give off an aura of their draconic nature. So red dragon troglodytes might be hot, whereas green dragon troglodytes give off like a nasty poisonous gas or something. I don't know. Anyway, getting back to the dragons in the environment, the I could imagine the regional effects changing. For example, maybe a white dragon that ends up moving or near territory, maybe near the mountain range of the black dragon, maybe instead of the acid pools and acid rivers, maybe they start to change as to get frozen over, literally when the PCs come back through the same region. So that's a way of changing and shifting the environment as well. And then when we come to the dragon Lairs, there is this, I think there's a subconscious tendency to some of us, and when I say us, I mean me, that the lair of a creature is literally the living embodiment of that creature, whereas maybe more on a practical level, a lair isn't really controlled by that creature, but just happens to be in a location that best protects it. So a red dragon being in a volcanic region or a black dragon being in a swamp, maybe it doesn't matter whether they're there or not, those effects still take place and they're not under the control of that creature, of that dragon. They just happen to be effects around. Now, some of those layer effects are pretty damn horrible and dangerous. So I would very much cut back on the lethality and then use escalation to ramp up the number of times those things happen and the amount of times, the amount of damage those things do. So if something does like 66 damage, maybe it happens, maybe you roll once a day to see if something happens to the PCs for like a die 6 damage, and then maybe once an hour and it does 2d6, and then maybe once every 10 minutes and it's like 3d6 as they get closer and closer to these particular regions. And again, using exploration, maybe it behooves the PCs to explore the regions, and instead of walking head forward into danger, they find tribes that are able to survive in these particular environments. Maybe they find other rebel factions that are trying to help the PCs. Maybe the PCs are working for or in league to these other dragon lords, and they need to find a way to penetrate the other dragons' realms because they are not adapted to these other um, draconic locations and such, and they may need to find other ways to protect themselves. So if the PCs are in league with a white dragon or silver dragon, they might have to find something to go into the swamps, some kind of salves or remedies or things of that nature and such. And of course, you guys know me, stacking BFF creatures and stacking the environment and having things happen where, bring up what Scott talked about with some kind of weird forms of locusts, or Dead Man's talks about Draco leeches and things happening in and around the environment. They may stack on top of a combat encounter. So maybe there are swarms of insects and the enemy is trying to drive the PCs into the swarms of insects, or the PCs do, or vice versa, right? PCs are like, oh, isn't there that pool of black pudding fluid? Yep. Everybody loves pudding, and goes and kicks the ogre in the chest, or cuts their legs out from underneath them and makes them fall into the black pudding or something. I mean, you could have a lot of fun with it. And you guys know me. I'm a big proponent of using and abusing the environment. If the PCs come up with something cool or fun, if a PC can figure out a way to get a bucket of black ooze and carry it around with them, more power to you if you think you want to carry something like that over your shoulders. But whatever, if that's the thing they want to do, sure. And along with, say, going back to dragons themselves being the environmental hazard, flying overhead and blasting things in their wings, and they're screeching and their tails lashing around, if the PCs are fighting other enemies, they could push or manipulate events to push people into the path of the destruction of these other dragons, right? It's pretty cool to want to maybe the PCs are sneaking into a city, and the dragon blooded soldiers are like, there they are, and they're going after the PCs, and the PCs round a corner, and they time it that when the dragon, who could care less about its little underlings, the dragon's tail lashes that tower and knocks that tower down in the middle of the road. When the PCs turn the corner and they're like, stop, and they convince the soldiers that are chasing them to stop, and the soldiers are like, what the, we're not supposed to be listening to them, and then boom, they get crushed or something. I think that would be hilarious. It would be fun to do, and I would definitely allow someone to get away with that if they had that as a plan. So the environment should be used and abused, and maybe, just maybe, these the dragons that are like covering this world and are so dangerous, as the PCs gain knowledge and level and explore the world, maybe they know there are ways for them to disrupt or lead these dragons away from where they're at, whether it's through remedies like sound or scent or treasure or decoys, or learning draconic behavior, knowing that particular seasons they arrive, or setting up a situation that will cause the dragon to go to the north to go after the usurpers up in the north, or go after its own daimyos that are not, following the tenets of what the dragon. Maybe there's rumors have been spread that the kings or the khans or the rexes that are rexi that are in the north are not following the dragon's instructions. So the dragon goes to the north, and the PCs are like, "Ooh, dragon believed it. Okay, now we can go down south and sneak into the kingdom and go over to city-state walls or whatever." That's a great way to reward the PCs with something that allows them to circumvent some dangers, as opposed to, say, handing out more treasure, which in a way it technically is treasure. But instead of handing out magic items or what we consider to be like traditional treasure, maybe those treasures are, maps and missives or connections to get from one place to another, or again, leading a dragon from one place to another or something like that. And of course, when it comes to the environment, you can give out temporary solutions to things, finding or befriending people that can, hey, if we burn these incense around us or rub this salve on our skin, we don't have to worry about bugs for 24 hours, right? Or if we sniff in these incense, we're not going to be affected by the poison gases down in the Underdark or something. Like you could give away ciphers. That's a Numenera thing, or a Numenera and cipher system thing. Ciphers are one-use items that are very strange. So instead of just giving away potions and scrolls, just reskin all that crap. It doesn't have to be a potion or a scroll. It could be a cloak. It could be a piece of food. It could be, and it could be something that has to be prepared, like tea or coffee. It could be a salve that has to be on the skin. Heck, there's all kinds of fluids. Let's not get dirty. There's all kinds of fluids that you can apply to your body, whether it's oils, salves, effervescence, tinctures. You maybe have to put a drop under your tongue. It could be powders. They could be a spray of some sort, something that you have to mix to make like a stew. So you could make and reshape all of these things and reskin these things based on cultures and where the people are at. So sure, in one city you drink a golden potion that heals you. In another city, maybe there's a sickly smelling sticky substance that's placed inside of giant leaves that you're supposed to wrap around your wound. Are they exactly the same healing potion? Sure, but maybe they're just two completely different things. Maybe in another realm, you have to put a blanket over your head and boil a concoction and sniff in the concoction. Whereas maybe in yet a fourth location, there's these gemstones that are magical, and you take them and spin them in your fingers, and when they spin, they float in the air temporarily, drawing out the the harm from your body and absorbing the wounds that are there, whatever the case might be. Doesn't really matter. The whole point is, descriptions and reshaping and reskinning things in your world is a great technique. So one last thing to talk about dragons and the environment. I talked about regional effects. Regional effects are a great way to foreshadow the horrors that might befall the PCs. You could make up your own regional effects. And how about mixing and matching regional effects and layers, right? There's no reason why we have to stick with the traditional chromatic dragons and metallic dragons. We know there are void dragons, stellar dragons, shadow dragons, gemstone dragons, purple, other color, purple, yellow, brown, whatever. Maybe there are various breeds of dragons that have mixed together, or lung, heart, brain, and circulatory system dragons. Is that what we're saying now, Scott? I am the nervous system dragon. I've got both lightning and super speed, right? Oh, you mean like Panlung? Oh, you're talking far eastern from us Westerners, far eastern dragons, the celestial dragons. Yeah, those are even. If I can mix and match a little bit, bear with me here. There are the celestial type of serpentine dragons, as well as I'm going to really butcher this, the coaxawattles, or shortened to coatls, the winged serpent could be dragons, a type of dragon. Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right there, Rickard. Yeah, your internet is kind of yo-yo on my end too, man. You could reskin, reshape, and redo dragons that are from different types of cultures in our own world, and then reskin them into your own draconic world as well. Scott says, I made a dragonborn monk who was that long-bodied, short-limbed type of dragon. Yeah, oh, that sounds sweet. What's your flurry of blows? My long ass tail and my body, right? Kind of brings up the thing of whether monks shouldn't be able to grapple creatures in your game. You're like, yeah, I can. My whole body is one big grappling weapon, right? plus a really cool breath weapon or something. Yeah, that'd be really awesome. I like that idea. And again, maybe they're celestial dragons that live in the skies or something, or they've sectioned off their own world, or there's been a battle between the chromatics and the celestials and the metallics or something, and they exist in this world. And still mixing and matching dragon layers and regional effects, I think, would be kind of cool, especially if you have dragons battling each other for territory. And I don't mean, yes, they could physically be battling in the countryside, but they could also be sending their agents. The dragon clans could be sending their own draconic agents, much like Legend of the Five Rings, where you have the samurai clans, swan, unicorn, crab, tiger, dragon clans and such. Maybe the same exists in this world, but they're all shaped around dragons. And so they have armies and agents and spies and assassins and wizards and things, all dedicated to these dragon-like beings. And wherever the territory bumps up against each other dragon, would be kind of strange, but kind of cool. Like maybe the white dragon bumps up against the red dragon. So there's this area where you see like molten lava and steam mixing together. Maybe there's like frozen lakes, but in the middle of the lakes, there's blasts of flames shooting up like geysers and things. You could really blend them together. Maybe there's like snowy blizzards over top of a burning landscape or something. It might be really strange and kind of cool. Things like that. I apologize. I would have sneezed yet again. Oh man, I'm so unprofessional. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me ramble down my deep dive and using the environment. You know me, that's my thing. So at least at least it's my thing and it's not that dirty. It could be much worse. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. I'm DBJ. I'm a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing. My brainchild is the cinematic environs, where you can get those over at Drive-Thru RPG. All that's down below the video. Also, this show is simulcast over on Discord. It's specifically the Fantasy Grounds College Discord server, and it's down in the boiler room. So if you go on the left and slide down past the classrooms and the collegiates hanging around there, you will see down there in the bottom of the Discord is the boiler room, where all the cool people hang out. Hey, Scott, everybody out there, have a great one. And just as a reminder, I really don't do too many calls to action as well. But if you like long form, if you're really into long form discussions and you're really a fan of the channel, it's just me and a camera and my mouth. But if you enjoy that kind of thing, no frills, I really would appreciate like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I know it's a lot to hoops to jump through, but unfortunately, us small content creators, and for those other content creators that you're a fan of, do that for them as well periodically. Like, maybe even if you absorb them like once a week or every couple of weeks and you like their stuff, just give them a thumbs up or share their things with somebody else, and it really helps out with the methods in which the content surfaces for other people to see and for you to see as well. Like, for example, very specifically, a bunch of you guys were trying to find the literally live show that I put live out there, and you guys weren't neither notified nor saw it on the front of my YouTube page, which is very strange in and of itself. So anyway, guys, thank you very much. Your time is very valuable. I hope I can give you some change back.